You are listening to the Digital Parent Podcast with your host, Ced Lewis.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Digital Parent Podcast. On this episode, we continue our series on bullying in honor of October's National Bullying Prevention Month. On this episode, I want to focus on 3 unique forms of bullying that impact Black youth across the United States. I think this is super important in light of the recent Pew study that indicates the majority of teens in our nation have experienced some form of bullying, with almost 60% having been bullied or harassed online. But to me, the most alarming trend of that Pew study is a lack of Black parents being worried about bullying. Like when they did the cross comparison between Black parents, white parents, Hispanic parents, Black parents were way less concerned about their children being impacted by bullying. So in this episode, I'm going to give my brothers and sisters 3 reasons why you may want to be concerned because of things that are uniquely impacting your kids. So let's jump right into it. Issue number 1 in the Black community when it comes to bullying of our youth is homosexuality and transgenderism. So if you have a child at school who's self-identifying as being gay or being a transgender, the stats are through the roof of the harassment and the bullying that's taking place in the school system and online. And we know there have been numerous situations recently where kids have tried to commit suicide based on them being bullied because of their sexuality. There was recently a situation with a little Jamel Miles, a 9-year-old, who recently committed suicide 4 days into the school year, this school year, 2018, after being bullied by his 4th grade classmates for being gay. His mother found him dead in their home because of the bullying. She walked in, found her child just hanging. And he's just one of many examples of Black youth who have resorted to suicide because of the constant bullying based upon their sexuality. I have experienced this myself with kids in my neighborhood. I have had conversations with parents who have actually brought charges against school systems for not protecting their kids. It's very serious. If your kid is a bystander that's allowing this to go on, or they're commenting on the bullying that's taking place online, they could get arrested, especially here in the state of Georgia and most other states in the South. Online harassment is a crime, so you really need to pay attention to whether or not your child is being bullied because of their sexuality, or if your child is the bully that's bullying other kids based upon their sexuality. There are real life consequences to that behavior. Okay, the second form of bullying that's very unique to Black youth is bullying based upon their hairstyles or hair texture. And we're really seeing this in the school system, more from school administrators than the youth who actually attend the school. Because a lot of school administrators have these very racist policies that try to mandate certain looks and certain styles of dress that's impacting kids. There have been stories in Florida. There was a story in Boston of 2 sisters that had box braids where the school administrator kicked them out, suspended them because they had braids in their hair. I mean, just think about the impact that happens when a kid gets suspended. These are kids who go into a very prestigious private school, trying to get into college, then they got to deal with an suspension on their record. So there's all these secondary impacts to kids wearing hairstyles that's hurting them when it comes to their college application. We also, like I said, we saw it in Florida. Another young kid, I think the kid was like 8-year-old, went to school, had dreadlocks in his hair. Not only did they kick the kid out for having dreadlocks, his dad was upset. He talked to the other parents in the parking lot about his kid being suspended for dreadlocks, and they called the police on the dad. So the dad had to deal with law enforcement. So it's getting very, very racist and very, very serious of how Black youth are being targeted by their hairstyles, by having braids, by having cornrows, by having dreadlocks, and they're being impacted. And it's really kind of leading to this whole school to prison pipeline, because it's not just a situation where kids are given a warning or a write-up. A lot of kids are getting suspended. A lot of kids are getting sent to detention. When I say detention, I'm not talking about school detention. I'm talking about law enforcement detention, where the parents have to go to law enforcement to pick them up because they've been kicked out of school. So that's something that we really have to be paying attention to, is bullying based upon hair texture and hairstyles. Now, this third issue when it comes to bullying is very unique to Black youth. I think it's unique to a lot of youth of color, but especially African American youth, is the issue of colorism. So colorism, is a notion that anything that's any color that's closer to white has this perception of being more educated, more well behaved, and this has been proven throughout history, where people have done these different studies, and some of you guys may remember the Barbie doll study by the Clark husband and wife team, where basically they took two dolls, put them in front of a group of Black girls. One doll was dark skinned, the other one was white, and the kids preferred the white doll over the Black doll, which kind of showed how kids are being normalized by through media that whiteness is perceived to be better than Blackness. But we're also seeing this playing out in the school system, and a lot of us are still at that age where we can remember colorism impacting us in school, where if there was a kid that was a lot darker and darker complexion, that kid was immediately being targeted and bullied and harassed in school. But now, you guys, especially with my parents, I want you to understand it's more intensified through Instagram, right? Because Instagram is all based upon pictures. So when these kids are putting their pictures on Instagram when they're a darker complexion, you have a lot of kids really going in on them. And just to give you an example of how big this is, we could take the Kardashian sisters. Kim Kardashian recently put up a picture of her child, her sister child, I think it was Kendall and Khloe's kid, put all three of them together. And Khloe's kid, who her, baby father is Tristan Thompson, who is the center that plays for, power forward that plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But her child was a lot darker than the other two kids. And I'm talking about, people went in on Twitter harassing her child, calling her child ugly, saying very nasty things, to the point that it became like a firestorm on social media. So we're talking about babies. These kids not even one yet, and we saw colorism play out. So if it's, people who are multimillionaires have to deal with this, think about just regular kids on a day-to-day basis that have to deal with colorism. So we really want to watch out for that. Now, thankfully there have been a couple kids on Instagram who have flipped the script, where they've embraced their Blackness and they've utilized it to promote and celebrate themselves. I think there's one girl, I can't remember her name, but she actually created like a t-shirt celebrating her Blackness. And there's been a couple of models as well who have really been trendsetting in that manner, really trying to destroy this notion of colorism. But that's something that's very unique that's impacting Black kids. And a lot of kids are being bullied every day just based upon the color of their skin, not by other races, but by their race. So we really need to be in tune to it. So guys, I hope I was really able to bring light to three very unique forms of bullying, which is, sexuality, hairstyles, and colorism. There is really impacting Black kids day to day in the school system and online. It's very rarely talked about. People talk about generic forms of bullying, but these are specific forms of bullying that's impacting our kids. So, for your homework assignment, I really want you to sit down with your kids after you hear this podcast. It could be on the way to school in the morning, or if you pick up your kids, or maybe it's after dinner. But I want you to ask them whether or not they have been bullied based upon the three things that we just discussed, whether or not they know somebody who's been bullied just because of the things we discussed. Because the research is clear. When parents show support and love around bullying issues, it goes away. So if we don't love our kids or love our neighbor kids, it's not going to do anything. So the solution is with us. So I hope you really enjoyed this episode of Digital Parent Podcast. Please rate us on iTunes if you like this show. If you're listening to this or you're viewing this on YouTube, please leave us a comment and give us some other examples of some unique ways Black youth are being impacted by bullying. Until the next time.